to be learning how to identify 7 pitfall patterns of negative thinking and how to transform them. So I'm Carolyn Chilia. I am your osteopathic manual practitioner, kinesiologist, clinical hypnotherapist, fascial stretch therapist, NLP practitioner, and I am bringing you these 7 negative thought patterns from Dr. Mike Dow's book, Your Subconscious Mind Can Change Your Life. And I just want to teach you how to identify them, what they are, and then a simple, easy way to transform them so that you can reach your full potential. You don't have to worry about these negative thought patterns because they're holding you back from achieving what you'd like to achieve. Okay, so let's dive in. The first negative pitfall pattern is paralysis by analysis. So I'm sure that you have heard this before as a way of thinking, and I'm sure that you have had this before. So this type of thinking is pretty common, and what it kind of looks like is ruminating about certain things, having anxious thoughts, and it's really preventing you from taking action on what you need to be taking action on. So it kind of looks a little bit like spiraling until we don't do anything. So thinking about maybe someone giving you a certain look, thinking about maybe someone saying a certain thing, someone getting something over you, and you just analyzing that to the point where you don't actually focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on or take action on what you're supposed to be taking action on. And this can be very negative because it does hold you back from just continuing on with your life. We're thinking, oh, what if I do this? Or what if it means this? Or what if they think this? So this one can really just stop you from even moving forward in your life. And the second thought pattern is permanence. So permanence is a way of thinking that because something is a problem right now, it will always be a problem. You can't see the other side, or that this is a phase, or this is a wave or a mood. So it's when we charge our current situation so negatively that we believe that it will always be. So you don't believe that the future will get any better. You will always think that it will always be this way. And this thought pattern generally comes in when we lose someone or something really, really close to us, or there's a big change in our life. So this might be something like a partner leaves you and you think, I can't, or I won't move on from this. I will always be sad from this. This will always be this way, right? So it's a permanence. It's not okay, this person left me, I will mourn and heal, and then I will continue on with my life, right? It is my life will now always be this way because of X, Y, Z. So the third negative thought pattern is personalization. So personalization is something that can really eat away at you and hold you back from your potential, because what it means is that you blame yourself or you identify with what is happening. So when you blame yourself for things not going your way, even if the outcome had absolutely nothing to do with you, then that really affects our self-esteem. So we think one really good example is a coworker has a not great look on their face. Okay. You personalize that and believe it's something to do with you, either something you did or that you don't, that they don't like you, but really we haven't figured out why they're having this. So it could just be they're having a bad day and has absolutely nothing to do with you. Or it can be when you put the blame on yourself for something that should have been the outcome of a group of people. So something in like with a family, where there's an unfavorable outcome and you have put the blame all onto you. So that personalization is really just holding you back from achieving everything that you want to achieve, and not getting down to the bottom of what the situation actually is. So what do you actually have control over versus what do you not have control over? And a lot of the time we're personalizing things that we don't really have control over. So someone's mood, someone's participation, anything like that, it has nothing to do with us, but sometimes we put the blame on ourselves, and that really holds us back from having good connections, and also taking action on what we want to do, thinking that things are all our fault. So then the fourth negative thought pattern is pervasiveness. So pervasiveness is a really tricky one to get into, and I know that I've dealt with this one before too. It's challenging because pervasiveness is when we have one negative outcome or one negative thought when one thing goes wrong, and then now it just bleeds through the rest of our areas of our life or our day. So pervasiveness is something like, okay, well, I didn't eat well today, so now I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to work on my business because now it's just blown my whole day. So now I'm not going to be working on my business. Now I'm not going to work out. I'm going to cancel plans with my friends. So I'm not going to socialize because I don't deserve it. And so one thing that happened wrong. So I ate poorly, and now it goes into all these different areas of my life, right? This is a very important one to catch, because this one can basically ruin your life when one little thing or one part of your life isn't going well, and it doesn't need to affect all the areas of your life, right? So this one is really important to catch because of its just astronomical effect, right? So when we believe that something, or we make something global, so we make something very, very widespread rather than just specific. So I made a mistake in this part of my life, or I made a mistake at this time of my day. It doesn't need to go all the way to the rest of my day or my life, right? So the fifth negative pitfall or thought pattern is pessimism. And we've either been a pessimistic person or we've come into contact with a pessimistic person. And when I'm specifically talking about pessimism here, what I'm talking about is more so the rabbit hole and the worst case scenario. So if we are always picking out the worst possible case scenario and believing that that is what is going to happen, that is the pessimism or the thought pattern that I'm talking about, as well as the rabbit hole kind of snowball thought pattern. So that would be something like a great example is my daughter is 30, and I'm afraid that if she waits until she's over 35 to have children, then she's going to have to take hormones, and it's more likely that the child will have defects. And I read that hormones cause cancer, and cancer kills people, and my daughter's going to die if she waits too long to get pregnant. So that's a snowball. That's like a worst case scenario. So we start just, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and absolute worst case scenario that is not very probable, right? So we're not even thinking about things that are probably going to happen, right? You're just thinking things that could possibly occur. So it's possible that could happen, but it's not very probable that it will, right? It doesn't make much sense to be thinking that is going to be the course of action, right? So this pessimism is very good to catch, because you can imagine how your mood would be if these were the things that you were thinking, right? If you were thinking these worst case scenario or just absolute catastrophic, awful things that are going to happen, right? Your mood would be very, very affected. And so then the sixth negative pattern is polarization. And polarization is really important to catch because it locks us into a box. So polarization is saying black and white. It's one way or the other, or it's always or it's never. So this limits you greatly, right? So if we think, especially in terms of our identity, if we think I always do this, or I never do that, or or they're always late, or this never works out. This type of thinking is very, very constrictive, right? So we're never thinking, I just said it. So then we're never thinking that things are going to work out well or could work out in a different way. We're really limiting ourselves in what is actually possible for us, right? So that also restricts what actions we take because we believe that something is always one way or never one way, right? So then the seventh negative um, thought pattern here is psychic thinking. And this one is one that I have noticed. So with my clients, um, talking to them, I've noticed that this psychic thinking is just, it's, it's all over the place. So this type of thinking is where you either believe that the other person can read your mind, so they know what you're thinking, they know what's going on with you in your head, or you think that you can read another person's mind. This causes so many scenarios that are not even based in reality. So think about this. When you think that another person can read your mind, you're assuming that they understand your needs. They understand what is going on with you. They understand or they're making decisions based on their knowledge, their deep knowledge of what you want. Rather than you verbalizing it, you believe that they have an understanding. So their actions mean something completely different than what they would if you didn't believe that they understood what you wanted, right? And that can go the same way for you. So if you are having this psychic thinking and you're believing that you understand what another person is thinking or doing, then now you're attaching meaning to their actions that they haven't told you are their intention, right? And you see where this runs into or can make you spiral into different things because now you're thinking that certain things mean something or they don't mean something, and we're just making all these assumptions that are not based in reality or have been told to us that this is my intention and this is what I'm thinking or this is what I believe, right? So this one is a really important one to eliminate if possible. So now that we've covered all 7 negative thought patterns, I'm going to teach you how to easily eliminate these. And it is a lot simpler than you would believe. So what has happened with these patterns, and I'll go over the 7 again really quickly, and then I'll tell you why these could become patterns with you. Okay, so the first pattern is analysis paralysis. So we're overanalyzing everything, and then we're not taking action in our lives. Second one is permanence. We believe that what's happening right now, or a big event in our life, is now going to be the way that we feel for the rest of our lives. The third one is personalization. So we're taking everything that's going on around us personally, or we're taking the blame for everything. The fourth one is pervasiveness, and that means that we are thinking instead of a specific situation being one way, we've allowed it to spread into the rest of our life, so all areas of our life. The fifth one is pessimism, and that is that thinking of what is possible rather than what is probable and the worst case scenario. The sixth one is polarization, and that's black and white thinking. That's one way or the other. That's always or never. And then the seventh negative thought pattern is psychic thinking. So believing that others understand what we deeply want and need and our intentions. And then that is us believing that we understand other people's intentions and that we know what's going on in their minds. And so we get into these patterns because Our brain loves the familiar, and it loves to take shortcuts, and it loves to just give you some sort of answer to something, right? So if we get into these thought patterns, we have run all these neural networks, and we are continuing to run them because it's kind of worked for us or it's familiar. So when we analyze, we might have prevented ourselves or stopped ourselves or thought that we helped ourselves, right? If we're pessimistic, then we're just thinking of all of the outcomes, right? So our brain thinks it's doing us this favor when it's in these negative thought patterns. But in reality, we can really just train our brain to have positive thought patterns and have great results that we want, right? And so one way that we can easily get out of these thought patterns is, one, to start to recognize it. So what I want you to do is, this is not going to be a right here, right now, you figure this out and it's solved. It's going to be in the moment, taking the tool that I teach you and using it. But what we have to first do is recognize, when are we getting into these thought patterns, right? Because I can describe them to you, but in the moment you might not be thinking, oh, I'm going into the polarization thought pattern, right? So what I want you to do is set a timer on your phone, an alarm on your phone, and just remind yourself maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the day, recognize my thought patterns, recognize my thought patterns, recognize my thought patterns. Or, so either 3 times throughout the day for a week, or today I'm going to be thinking about, where am I pessimistic? Today I'm going to be thinking about, where am I using polarization? Today I'm going to be thinking about, and set them one for each day. Once you do this once for 1 week, you will recognize when you are doing these, when you're doing the psychic thinking, when you're doing the pessimistic thinking, when you're overanalyzing, you will recognize it if you just stick to this for 1 week. So either setting a timer for 3 times throughout the day to recognize your thought patterns, or choosing one day throughout the week to recognize each thought pattern. Once you do that, you have now asked your brain to look for it, and your brain will look for it. So now we've got through the recognition part. What do we do? So when we recognize that we are in this negative thought pattern, any one of them, it is a pattern. Just 1 second, sweetie. Okay, that's fine. Just 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so when we are in this negative thought pattern, how do we get out? How do we eliminate it? So we eliminate it by recognizing the pattern and then interrupting the pattern. That's all it is. It's a habit, it's a pattern, it's a thought pattern. All you have to do to eliminate it is interrupt it. My favorite way to interrupt a pattern is to use kinesthetic touch. So what happens is, you have a negative thought. You have a way that it begins. So it starts with, so if it's analysis paralysis, it starts with the first thought, and this could mean that could mean that, and then it pulls more and more and more in. Once I recognize that I've started it, now I want to interrupt it. And it's unbelievably simple. So you can use something like, I'll start snap. So now I notice, okay, now I'm analyzing. Now I stop, and now my brain's on to another different thought. If that doesn't work for you, I use meridian points with deep breathing, or the easiest one that I found works great for my clients is, we get up, we walk, we go grab a glass of water, we come back. Now we're on to a whole different thought pattern. We've just broken that chain. When you can break that chain, so it is as simple as that. We just have to do it over, right? Now we've broken that chain. So now that neural network that is firing and has been firing that pathway over and over your whole life, or 10 years, whatever it is, now we've broken it. And now we're telling our brain, well, there's going to be a new pattern. When that comes into my head, I'm not going to be thinking about that. That's not important to me. I'm not paying attention to it. I went and did something else. Now you have to pay attention to what I'm doing here, right? We're breaking that pattern. We break it enough times, our brain doesn't want to fire it again. It goes, this isn't important. She's telling me don't pay attention to it. She had to go do something else. It was so unimportant, she got up to go get a glass of water. That's how unimportant this thought is. So once we just break and interrupt that pattern and continue to interrupt the pattern, we no longer run those negative thought patterns. They are no longer part of our network. They don't run on us. Often when I teach people how to interrupt their pattern or that we can get rid of these negative thought patterns, I do hear a little bit of resistance sometimes, either a hesitancy of, what, well, maybe I do need to think of the worst case scenario. Maybe I do need to think of always and never. Maybe this will be this way for the rest of my life and I have to prepare for it. And that in itself is a negative thought pattern. We don't need these negative thought patterns. You do not need them. So your energy can be focused on setting goals and preparing your life realistically. Okay? But these negative thought patterns are not helpful. What would be helpful instead of psychic thinking would be to ask your partner what they want. Tell your partner what they want. That would be useful um, time and energy, right? So we don't need to be thinking these things. Pessimism, thinking of the worst case scenario. No, we can just create our goals with the energy that we have to what is possible, right? To what is probably going to happen and arrange our lives in that way, right? So so this is how we break these negative thought patterns. So if you liked this video, thank you. If you have any questions, just comment below, and I'm going to link